Hi guys, welcome to the Calm F1 League Season 2 season review. This is going to be a non-scripted video that is going to have no frills. We're just going to sit and talk about the season, about anything interesting, look over the season statistics, look over the tables, and then have a quick look ahead to next season as well. So for anyone who was enjoying the videos, thank you so much for watching them. I'm going to try and get back to doing those for the next season, so you can expect a lot more from them, so make sure that you are liked and subscribed. But yeah, we're going to start by getting up the chart of the driver standings, and we're going to go through driver by driver for the main people that were there regularly, and have a look to see what they got up to. So obviously we can start with Ella, who kind of needs no introduction at this point. She had one finish outside the top 5 in Australia for the P7. Other than that, she had 18 first place finishes from the different sessions, not necessarily the races, but that does include the sprints. 15 pole positions as well. She was just imperious. It felt impossible to catch. The amount of times that you're driving along a straight, you can't physically see how anyone could possibly be faster than you, and there she goes sailing past. It was demoralizing, but fair play, incredible driver for the season. Next we have Roberts, who had a great season as well. There was a couple of DNSs and retirements, but not very many. I think he scored points in all but 5 sessions, and a lot of podium finishes as well, including a win at China, which definitely helped his points total. The other thing to note there is that his points total was half of Ella's despite coming second. So that was definitely an interesting statistic. He consistently finished in the top 5 at the very least. I think it was only 4 races where he didn't, where that includes the DNSs as well, which definitely helped his points total. Coming up next, we had Dynamite, who a little bit inconsistent with 7 DNSs and 3 retirements, but despite that, managed to finish on the podium in 9 races, with obviously his first place in Singapore. And he had, despite the lack of the DNSs, he stormed to 3rd place, pipped Gemel there by 12 points in the final couple of races. It was really all to play for, which was very, very exciting. The Ferrari and Aston Martin duel was incredible to watch. He had, he, like I say, he hot on his heels was Gemel, who usually finished in the top 5 when he didn't retire or have a DNS. Best finishes, Hungary and Spain, but again, a regular contender for a podium position. I think he picked up 6 or 7 over the course of the season, and general consistency with not retiring definitely helped the points total. Then we go on to Lang. I mean, you can see the streak of purple there on the left. He had 3 retirements in a row, including, well, 4 if you don't count the sprint in the middle of them, which definitely hurt his point total early on. But then a run of incredible form. We picked up he picked up a win in Emilia-Romagna, including the sprint, got himself a podium, and then after that was just generally finishing, in decent points positions, which kind of helped leapfrog him above a lot of other drivers into 5th place, which was, really good to see that kind of improvement. I think he picked up 3 3rd place finishes in total. After that, we have Adams, who, despite a honeymoon break in the middle of his season, not picking up points for 8 races, or 7 races rather, in a single span, still managed to come 6th ahead of other drivers from maybe even McLaren, who some people might even say deserved it a bit more. But, that's fine. I'm very happy for him. He, picked up points. You could see him improving throughout the season. His rate of points getting was improving every single race. He was picking up podiums towards the end of the season as well. I think he got 3 podiums in total, and just generally really consistent driver up at the top. There's a couple of retirements, but generally speaking, it goes to show that just showing up is one of the best ways to get yourself up the table. Up next is Snips, who joined us halfway through the season, and he was one of the few people who gave the dominance of the Ferraris and the Astons something to think about. He got a win in Portugal, got a couple of podiums thrown in there too, but he was horrifically inconsistent with his spinning. He was regularly spinning out, which definitely cost him places. He also had a few DNSs within the season as well. Really looking forward to seeing how high he can actually push that next season. I mean, just looking at it now, if we just, back of the table, back of the napkin calculations, if we double his points, he jumps up to, third. So very, very excited to see what he does next season. Next up, we have Juki, who is me. I had a season that I'm not particularly proud of. I should say as well, Snips. Oh no, I got all my Snip stuff out. It's fine. So I did not do great. I definitely finished in the points every time, and I was helped by the fact that I showed up for almost every race. But definitely let down by inconsistency in strategy, I think was my major problem. A lot of decisions I made on when to change tyres screwed me, as well as just not being the fastest driver, generally speaking. But again, showing up every week and getting 7th, 6th, 5th, wherever, definitely helps in terms of position. Then we have Polar, who, if you have a look, you can see he got top 5 finishes in 5 races. He had 4 retirements and a couple of DNSs as well, which definitely didn't help him. He was dropping out of the points positions whenever there were, well, not whenever, but a lot of the times that there were more than 10 drivers. But towards the season, he definitely improved and became a much more difficult person to race against. So, again, going into next season, looking forward to seeing if that progress keeps up. Then we have Pi, who unfortunately was quite inconsistent again throughout the season with DNSing, retiring, non-point scoring finishes. In fact, he didn't pick up his first point until China, which was almost a third of the way through the season. But towards the end of the season, he absolutely toggled. If you look there on the right hand side, you see a string of podiums. Unfortunately, he retired in the last race where he could very well have knocked Polar out of 9th place, but despite that, he finished the season incredibly strongly. So going into next season, when everyone changes teams, he's going to be looking at it being a very, very tough competitor. Then we have Echo, who unfortunately missed most of the season. But to a lot of our shame, when he was there, he was getting first and second. In fact, every time except for one, he finished first and second. And I think the 11th place finish was down to a couple of spins and a dodgy safety car, if I remember rightly. Hopefully we get Echo to show up more consistently next season, because he would be a great contender to knock Ella off her throne. Then we move on to Sol, who left the league halfway through, and then Brissinger, who again did leave the league towards the end. Unfortunately, work was piling up. He did get a couple of good finishes, a couple of podiums as well, but unfortunately did suffer from a lot of retirements, regularly on the receiving end of bumps, nudges, and unfortunate safety car call-outs. So much like his teammate Joe, who did miss the last couple of the last few races, but did when we did see him, did seem to be improving, which is always good to see. So we'll look to see, hopefully, him improving again next season as well. Then after that, we have drivers who showed up once or twice. So Snoopy picked up a first place in the sprint race at Monza before retiring during the race, which was a shame, although apparently he will be joining us for next season, which is great. Tez showed up for one race, picked up a podium, and then Zetiago. Blobfish will be apparently joining us for next season as well, which will be great. He got a points finish in both the sprint and the race for his first race in Brazil, while Mystic again finishes 7th. Other than that, no more points finishes and just retirements. So In terms of the individual statistics, what we can see is the dominance of Ella. 18 first place finishes. She had an exceptional season, doubled the points total of the second place. It was absolutely mental to think about. If you saw that in real life, you would be, driver of the decade or whatever sort of thinking. But we did see a high variability in performance. So lots of drivers experienced a number of retirements, DNSs, and inconsistencies in race results. There was, if you look through any driver that isn't Ella, you will see a massive range of finishing positions. It was a relatively open field, despite what the table shows, which kind of, it made it interesting. There was anyone on their day could pick up at least a podium, which was really, really good to see. In fact, I think only myself and Polar didn't, of the regular drivers, didn't pick up a podium, which sounds really interesting and uplifting to say about the league as a whole, but is bitterly disappointing as an individual. So we're going to move on from that. And so on that note, we had 13 drivers who were on the podium at least once during the season, which is just sort of a highlight of the competitiveness of the league. And it's something that we're really looking forward to for next season and the seasons going forward, to see exactly what happens and where we can take that. We also had a lot of people who DNS'd, obviously. Some people dropping in, dropping out, which is fine. Hopefully we're going to have a bit more consistency from the main drivers next season, and we've got a few new drivers who will be joining us as well. So there'll be a lot more variability in point finishes. We're going to lower the number of points. Well, I'll get onto that shortly, so don't you worry. And in terms of the point distribution, despite how open a field it actually was, and how and where people qualified, what we actually did see was, I think, around half of the total, more than half of the total points available in the season went to the top 5 drivers. So Ella, Roberts, Dynamite, Gemel, Lang, you guys all picked up more than half of the points in total between you. So congratulations, I think. So moving on, we'll have a quick look at the constructors standings. You can see, no surprise, Ferrari won. Ella won it on her own. If Dynamite had his points doubled, it would have been a bit closer, but Aston Martin would have won. But Ella is a freak of nature, so there was no contest there. I think it was wrapped up fairly early in the season. But aside from that, the rest of the grid was relatively close, to be fair. Aston Martin were leagues above everyone else. But back here in Formula 1.5, we had McLaren with myself and Adams, where we managed to finish third. Our closest rivals for most of the season were actually Haas, who were, giving it to us really, really hard for most of the season. Pie's push towards the end definitely helped to pad the numbers for them a little bit. But thankfully, from our side, it wasn't enough. And we did finish 30 odd points ahead of them, 40 even. However, Snips and Echo for Mercedes came in fourth, despite finishing less than a quarter of the total race, the race positions available. Those two together on a team would be rivaling Ferrari, I think. But thankfully, because of the way we're doing next season, that's not going to happen, so that's fine. Other than that, AlphaTauri was just a Lang run thing for pretty much the entire season, except for the one race where Blobfish joined in. And he did really well, to be fair. He definitely got more points than you would expect a single driver to get. He's the reason that AlphaTauri is further up that list than you would expect with a single driver, and then Williams, unfortunately, stopped existing essentially after Bahrain. So we're looking forward to getting them back next season. Then we've obviously got Alfa Romeo with their one position from their sprint, their 8 points. But aside from that, we're moving on to our next season now. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a series of shorter seasons, sort of 7-8 races, to sort of get back in the swing of things before the new game comes out. We don't want to commit to a whole new season, so we're going to be doing some themed seasons. The first one coming up is going to be the 1950s, so that's going to be 7 races featuring just the tracks or just the countries or similar countries that were in the 1950, the first World Championships. So for our sake, that's going to be Silverstone, Monaco, Circuit of the Americas, the Red Bull Ring, Spa, whichever the France one is, Paul Ricard, and Monza. So it'll be a shorter season. And what we're also doing is we're mixing up the teams. So the way that the teams are going to work going forwards is that the highest rated drivers based on average points last season will be paired with the lowest drivers. That's not necessarily the points totals, but the average points per race. So if they didn't show up for a lot of races, then that would count against them, as they on average would bring fewer points to their team as a total. So we're going to have teams, I'll just go through them very quickly. We've got AlphaTauri with Lang and Snips. We've got Dynamite and Pi in Aston Martin. Ella and Joey in Ferrari. Gemel and Pola in Haas. Me and Adams have ended up together on McLaren again. 2 new drivers in Leibs and Seesaw driving for Mercedes. And then Robert and Echo together in Red Bull. So it should be a good season. Very short, a couple of months, and then we'll be moving on to a couple of other short ones and mixing the teams up again. So we're looking forward to that. I will try and get up a full race, possibly not the qualifying, or possibly not the highlights. I'll try and decide which way around I want to do it. But we'll try and get some videos up for them. So as I said earlier, like and subscribe, and we'll see you later. Thank you for watching if you've made it this far.